Welcome to the Matt Bernier Show.
Welcome into the Matt Bernier Show on Friday, April the 8th, live from the Daily Racing Form Studios, Midtown Manhattan, on this lovely day. It's opening day at Keeneland, and we have to make acknowledgement that today we're going to be presented by the Big Apple Bluegrass All-Stakes Pick 4, which will be going on tomorrow between Aqueduct and Keeneland. Again, opening day at Keeneland today, and tomorrow, clearly, three big Kentucky Derby preps on deck. We'll dive into that All-Stakes Pick 4 at the end of the show after we get through our two guests. But again, a big show on deck today. Jay Priven, DRF National Correspondent, will be the first guest. And then my friend from Boston, Massachusetts, Mike McMahon from Sports Radio WEEI. Very sharp handicapper. He'll be joining us in the second segment. So this whole weekend really revolves around the big three. You've got the Bluegrass, you've got the Wood, and you've got the Santa Anita Derby. And, you know, only a week ago we were talking about how it was the showdown of the unbeatens. We've got two-year-old champion Nyquist. We've got Mo Heyman, undefeated Derby favorite. And the sort of showdown never really developed because for one reason or another, Mo Heyman didn't fire. Nyquist went on and won like a good thing. I think a lot of people immediately look at that and say, Nyquist, boy, he's the one to beat. And maybe he is. And I think you have to acknowledge that at this point he probably deserves to be the favorite in that race. We'll see. He's got a little bit of an elevated white blood cell count right now, and as far as his blood work is concerned, he's at Keeneland. But at the end of the day, that's another time. We'll talk about that after we get through this weekend. We've got to focus in on the three big preps that we've got ahead of us. Let's take a look at the updated top 20 leaderboard as far as the Derby points are concerned. And this is going to change a lot in this next sort of 24 to 48 hours, simply because you've got a lot of horses that are on this list that are going to be running for 100 points. The winner of these, if each one of these three preps gets 100 points, second gets 50, third gets 20. So you'll see a lot of movement out of this top 20 leaderboard. You may actually even see some names that aren't currently on the top 20 all of a sudden shuffle around to get themselves into position to go on with it. So it's a big weekend. And we can take a look at all three of them real quickly before we bring in our guests. But the Santa Anita Derby, you look at it, you've got basically a rematch of that San Felipe, where 5 of the top 6 runners, they're all coming back and they're going to run here in this spot. You've got More Spirit, you've got Dancing Candy, you've got Exaggerator. It'll be fascinating to see, and I'm anxious to hear what Jay and Mike are going to have to say about these two races, and this race in particular, because Dancing Candy, as brilliant as he was when he went out there and he won that San Felipe in gate-to-wire fashion, he's going to have to deal with some other legitimate early speed in this race here in the Santa Anita Derby, because you've got a horse in Iron Rob, who was most recently successful in the San Pedro. He's coming right back. He's stretching out, and he really is kind of a one-way sort of horse. He's going to go. He'll be forwardly placed. It'll be interesting to see if Dancing Candy can relax and rate. More Spirit, he had quite an eventful trip in that San Felipe, and I think he got a ton out of it. If you listen to Gary Stevens afterward, you listen to Bob Baffert, they seem to think that he got more in that one prep than any of the other preps combined. This is a really good effort for this horse, and it'll be interesting to see how he rebounds. I think we're going to get a good effort from him tomorrow. An Exaggerator. He gave Nyquist a pretty good run for his money in the San Vicente 2 starts back. And his most recent go of it, okay, it didn't work out, but he put in a really long, sustained run for about a half mile. And understandably, he flattened. It sounds like the connections are a little bit concerned about how far ultimately he's going to want to go. We'll find out. He's got to try to go a mile and an eighth tomorrow in the Santa Anita Derby. Keeneland, again, opening day. Boy, it's a chilly one. 42 degrees, a little bit rainy. It sounds like there's snow in the forecast possibly, but that doesn't dampen the spirits. Everyone's excited to be back down in the Bluegrass, and the Bluegrass Stakes is tomorrow. You've got Zulu. He's going to be your morning line favorite. I think he'll probably be your post-time favorite, but it'll be closer than I think the morning line would suggest. He was runner-up to Mo Heyman in the Fountain of Youth, and just because Mo Heyman didn't fire, I don't think that means you need to hold that against Zulu. He's his own runner, but boy, there's a ton of speed signed on in that race. And then you look at these other horses that are going to be coming from the back. You've got a Grade 1 winner in Brody's Cause, who he won as a 2-year-old at Keeneland, putting in a very long, big move from the back of the pack. You've got another horse going out for Dale Romans and Cherry Wine, a closer. He should be getting a little bit of class relief, sneaky class relief from that Rebel into this spot. And then my man, Sam, a dangerous late runner for Chad Brown. And then we come up here to Aqueduct. We've got the Wood Memorial. There's only 8 runners, but they're 8 inexperienced and really kind of intriguing runners, because you don't really know what the ceiling is for these horses, whether it is a Shagaf, who was the winner of the Withers, or the Gotham rather, whether it is an Outwork, who's a nice runner-up to Destin in the Tampa Bay Derby with that 98 buyer, or a horse like Matt King Cole, who at this point has done nothing wrong. He's brilliantly fast. It'll be interesting to see. Now he's got to go 2 turns against great horses. We'll see. We'll separate the men from the boys coming up tomorrow in these 3 Derby preps. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, DRF National Correspondent Jay Priven will join me on the Matt Bernier Show. Stay with us.
Say goodbye to your inner caveman. If you're making caveman bets on pick sixes, you could be leaving money on the table. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you build more profitable exotic bets and place them with one click. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker. Be a samurai with your ROI. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you cut out unprofitable exotic bets before they happen and be the master of profits. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker, the exotic wagering app.
They're off in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Private Zone has run a 45 flat half mile and has opened up 2.5 lengths. Private Zone's got the lead close to home and he's all by himself. Private Zone wins the Forgo.
12:06 on the East Coast, 9:06 on the West Coast, the Matt Bernier Show on DRF Live. It's time to welcome in our first guest of the afternoon to discuss Super Saturday and the three big preps ahead of us. He is the DRF national correspondent, Jay Priven. Jay, it's Matt in New York. How are you?
Good, Matty. How are you?
Very good. We're looking forward to some good racing coming up this afternoon, or tomorrow afternoon, I should say. Let's start off down your neck of the woods in Southern California with the Santa Anita Derby. First things first, is the weather, it sounds almost like it's more the fact that it is going to come, it's just how heavy. Is that accurate?
That's what the forecast was yesterday morning. It was supposed to have, they're the worst handicappers in the world, as you know. And so far, it rained a little yesterday. They sealed the track this morning. It's bone dry right now, so I'm looking at a sealed racetrack and horses training on the training track. So they say it's supposed to start raining this afternoon, and the forecast initially was 100% chance of rain tomorrow, which is about the chances of Songbird and Santa Anita Oaks. So, the forecast was, yes, it's coming, but, we're kind of waiting for Godot at the moment.
As far as the race is concerned, even if the rain does come, there's a couple horses that are already proven on and off going. But of the big three, or the big four, if you want to say, let's talk about the horses coming out of that San Felipe. You've got More Spirit, you've got Dancing Candy, you've got Exaggerator. Of the big three, do you look at it and say, More Spirit is going to be in a better position this time around? Now you've got Dancing Candy who'll have to deal with Iron Rob early? Or do you look at it and say Dancing Candy is the horse still with plenty of upside since he's only raced 4 times?
I mean, I think both are I don't know that those are mutually exclusive. I think Dancing Candy will have Iron Rob have upside and that he's only had 4 starts. But one of the big concerns for me with Dancing Candy is that there have been times, didn't happen last time, but there have been times where he's been very poor in the gate. He gets a little squirrely, and a couple times he hasn't broken well. I mean, it really cost him in his first race. But even in his next 2 starts, he didn't really break sharply, but he had enough speed to get out of there. And that's still, to me, a little bit of a worry. So for More Spirit, I think going out to 1.125 miles is going to help him. He had a tough trip last time, and I was sure when he had his final breeze on Monday, he breezed better than he ever has. So he looks to me like he's sitting on a big, big race.
What are your thoughts overall about Exaggerator, a horse who made a big middle move in that San Felipe, but it sounds like Keith DeSormo, he's starting to get a little bit concerned about how far this horse really wants to go. He's got to deal with 9 furlongs tomorrow. Is that your concern, or do you think maybe he's just not as good as these?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of him. I liked him last time going into the San Felipe, and he certainly bred as though he's supposed to be fine going out to 1.125 miles and farther, but he just flattened out last time after making that big middle brush, as you mentioned. And I think Keith is just basically being a realist. The horse hasn't yet shown him that he's going to be more effective going longer, though he has always suspected that he'd be more effective going longer. But based on what he's seen so far, he's just being honest, because I'm not certain at this point, and I'm in the same camp. I mean, I do think he's going to be okay eventually going 2 turns, but I was disappointed in his race last time. I thought he should have finished it up a little bit better, and I'm really intrigued to see if maybe he bounced off of his big comeback race in the San Vicente against Nyquist, or if just going out to a mile and an eighth and farther, he's just not going to be quite as effective at this point in his career. But in terms of playing tomorrow, I based on what I saw last time, I've got to be against.
The Santa Anita Derby was supposed to have 10 go. We've already had a scratch. Take out the 7, Dresden Aramay for Janet Armstrong. Sounds like they're targeting that turf race on Derby Day at Churchill Downs. Of the other runners, anyone that does anything for you? Do you think it's as simple as the big horses? They're the ones that you got to go through.
Yeah, I think it's them. I mean, Smoky Image is a nice horse. His last race was very disappointing because he trained well going into it, but from a sig standpoint, he just really is vastly inferior. He'd have to run far and away a career top to get his way into the exacta, and I'm not sure that he's capable of doing it. I don't think he's as bad as he ran last time, but I'm not sure that he's good enough to beat the likes of the first 3 coming out of the San Felipe either.
Let's shift our attention to Lexington, Kentucky for the Bluegrass tomorrow afternoon. Opening day today at Keeneland. Doesn't sound like the weather is cooperating. It's chilly. It's a little bit rainy. There's a potential for some snow in the afternoon. Tomorrow, hopefully, it clears up a little bit. This is a race that right now your morning line favorite is Zulu, and I suppose you can say it's warranted. He ran second to Mohaymen last time out. I think anyone that's holding his race against him, the fact that he ran second to Mohaymen and Mohaymen bombed last week in the Florida Derby, I think that's a little bit harsh. Where do you stand on Zulu overall?
Well, I'm in that camp. I mean, I think you have to be a little skeptical of it because Mohaymen just didn't run last week. And if that's what you're comparing Zulu to, I mean, granted he's got upside, but he's a horse who's extremely nervous, and I'm really curious as to how he's going to react to the paddock situation with all those horses at Keeneland tomorrow, and of course all in the paddock, and of course all the people there, because he got very worked up going to the gate last time for the Fountain of Youth, and I think you've got to be a little bit concerned coming out of the last weekend because of how Mohaymen ran. So to me, I found this race, Matt, to be really, really challenging because there's just nobody here who I can really marry myself to with any conviction. There's several horses that I think have chances in here, but there's nobody in here who I just feel real strongly about.
Yeah, and the most interesting thing about this, talking to DRF national correspondent Jay Priven, we've got a full field. You've got 2 on the also eligible list. There's a ton of speed in this race, and it'll be interesting. You mentioned it. There's no one that's really some sort of a killer out there. You've got a couple maidens in here. You've got a couple horses eligible for non-winners of 2 lifetime, whatever the condition may be. Zulu's going to be forwardly placed, and ultimately, do you think that could potentially compromise him, even if you don't think, or you do think that last week maybe that kind of exposed him a little bit, the fact that Mohaymen didn't run so well. But the pace scenario, let's talk about that a little bit. Do you think that could be the undoing of one of these top choices?
I think in his case it's not the most helpful situation. I mean, it's going to help more of the late runners. It's going to help My Man Sam. It's going to maybe help Brody's Cause, though he's tough to get excited about because his last race was just so awful. But you're looking at him as about the second choice on the morning line, and yet he's coming off just really a terrible race last time in the Tampa Bay Derby. And maybe he'll bounce back at a track where he's run well twice at age 2, but can you really take a short price on the hope that he's going to come back to that form off that bad race last time? That's hard for me. So, I do think from a race shape standpoint, I like My Man Sam, though I think it's going to be a tough go for him from where he's drawn. And one horse in here who kind of intrigues me, Matt, is Star Hill, who also drew poorly, but I wrote in my analysis of the Tampa Bay Derby last time that I would like to see him given his head going 2 turns and see how he'd do, and that maybe as I wrote that day, I said maybe if he was in a slow-paced 2-turn race, he'd be more effective letting him roll. Well, this is probably not going to be a slow-paced 2-turn race, but if he falls through the cracks from a price standpoint, to me he'd be intriguing. But overall, I just don't have a strong conviction for this race. It's way too inscrutable for me.
Star Hill is a very interesting runner in this spot because he's paired up Byers in each of his last 2. His win at Gulfstream Park going 7 was visually very impressive, and I didn't think he was disgraced in that Tampa Bay Derby. He is one that definitely has a little bit of room for improvement, I would imagine. And it sounds like of the 2 Romans runners in this spot, you want to lean toward Cherry Wine compared to a Brody's Cause because you mentioned Brody's Cause was terrible in the Tampa Bay Derby.
Yeah, I'm really not a fan of either horse at this point, to be honest.
Okay.
I didn't like Brody's Cause's last race, and I thought Cherry Wine. I knew Corey Landry's gotten really beaten up over his rides on Mo Tom, but I wrote in my analysis of the Rebel that I thought his ride on Cherry Wine was really, really good because he had a poor draw. He was able to get over and save ground. There was a point going to the far turn where it looked like he was going to have to go around horses, and he was able to duck inside. He got through between horses and upper stretch. I mean, that horse had a much better trip than he had a right to from where he was drawn. So with all that said, it makes me wonder, for a horse whose career top is 87 off getting a fairly good trip considering where he was drawn last time, I'm not sure how good he is. But he's going to get a nice race shape probably for him. But I mean, going into that last race last time, his top sig was 79, and yet he had a fairly decent following, which for me was kind of hard to understand.
I agree with you. He's going to need to take a step forward if he's going to prevail in the Bluegrass, even if he does have the race shape in his favor. Let's move up to New York and talk about the third and final prep of the day on Saturday. It's the Grade 1 Wood Memorial. The smallest field of all three of the preps, but I would almost make the argument one of the more intriguing ones simply because I feel like you've got a lot of horses in here who we don't know what their capabilities are at this point because they're so lightly raced. Of the 8 horses in here, do you look at a horse like Shagaf and say, you know what, he's really been the talk of the town for a long time for Chad Brown? Or are you interested in a horse like Outwork or Matt King Cole?
I mean, I'm more interested in Matt King Cole because I really like his comeback race a lot, and he had shown at age 2 that he was a horse who could have high speed and yet keep on going. And so I like him tomorrow. And I thought Outwork ran a big race last time, considering it was only his second start off of a layoff, and it was a fast race for the day. You know, Shagaf, I don't know what to make of. I wasn't crazy about his first start at 3, but it was off a short work tab. So to me, he had a right to really move forward last time, and I actually wanted to see more from him last time than I actually saw. It took him a while to get past Leo Bond, who I give no chance to in the Bluegrass, and Adventus wasn't that far away, and he had the far worst of it, I thought, considering the way the track was that day, where you needed to be close and you needed to be towards the inside, and he was neither. So of the big 3 in the race, I have the least interest in the horse who might be the favorite of those 3, and that's Shagaf. I like Matt King Cole and Outwork, and then Adventus would be my third choice.
DRF National Correspondent Jay Priven joining us. What are your thoughts about the number 5 horse, Flexibility? This is a horse that going into the Withers was a heavy favorite, was 1-2 in that spot, and he was coming off of a couple of 90-plus buyers, and he completely flopped. He didn't pick his feet up really in that position. Do you look at him and say, give him the benefit of the doubt, give him a race, you know, it's not a complete indictment against him that he didn't fire that day, or do you look at it and say, this horse just isn't as good as the top runners?
Yeah, I wasn't, you know, even though he was a heavy favorite last time, and he deserved to be based on the quality of the field, I wasn't all in on this horse. My analysis of the Jerome, I thought he had the perfect trip of life that day, and he ran well, and he got a nice enough figure of a 90, but to me that was like, that's as good as he is, I thought, on that day. He got a perfect trip against horses that are probably a cut below the elite 3-year-olds, and he got a 90. So when he came back last time, and again had, I thought, a pretty good trip, and regressed off that race, that to me was very telling. And to me, there's other horses in here who have made far more progress in recent months, and Iran Ortiz is obviously going to go to Shagaf as opposed to Flexibility. So I think the trend is the bell curve is headed downward on Flexibility.
Outside of the top 3, you kind of alluded to it, may have tipped your hand a little bit. Adventus, he's an intriguing runner. He's still a little bit green, and you mentioned he was against the track bias last time out, considering there was an inside favoring track on Gotham Day. Other than Adventus, do any of the other ones do anything for you? The 2 imports coming in from Southern California, or even a Tail Saval for Barclay Tag?
Not really. I mean, the horses from California are if they run well in the Wood, that's going to be a big indictment of the Wood.
Yeah, agreed.
Because they're just not that. They're not that good, and I don't really kind of get what they're doing with Tail of Saval. I mean, his maiden win at Saratoga was good, and he had an excuse on the off track in the Champagne, and it just seems like they're being very aggressive right now, and that's not usually Barclay Tag's way of operating. So I just don't know what to make of this horse. He showed a lot of promise first time out, and he's just not really come back to that. Maybe there's a lot of horses, as you know, who just don't like Tampa Bay Downs, and so maybe he'll run better off that race. But he didn't really show much that day, and he's hard to. You really got to take a leap of faith to say, okay, off that comeback race, he's going to move forward so much that he's going to beat Matt King Cole and Outwork and Shaddoff and Adventus.
We'll let you get out of here, but before we do, the 3 races, give us a preference. Obviously, odds will come into play as far as wagering is concerned. Give me a preference in each one of the 3, Santa Anita, Bluegrass, Wood.
So we'll go with More Spirit on top in the Santa Anita Derby. I guess I'll take the horse of Rusty Arnold, Star Hill, in the Bluegrass, and for the Wood Memorial, I'll marry myself to your namesake, Matt King Cole.
DRF national correspondent Jay Priven. You can follow him at DRF Priven on Twitter. Thanks for giving us a little bit of time, Jay. Best of luck this weekend, and we'll see you soon.
All right, Matt. I'm looking forward to seeing who that band is that comes on for the last 5 minutes of the show, like on all talk shows.
Sounds good, Jay. We're going to take a quick break here on the Matt Bernier Show. We come back. My buddy Mike McMahon from Boston Sports WEEI will be joining me. Stay with us here on the Matt Bernier Show.
Say goodbye to your inner caveman. If you're making caveman bets on pick sixes, you could be leaving money on the table. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you build more profitable exotic bets and place them with one click. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker. Be a samurai with your ROI. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you cut out unprofitable exotic bets before they happen and be the master of profits. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker, the exotic wagering app.
Daytime Southern California Thoroughbred Racing returns to Los Alamitos Thursday, April 14th, with top trainers like Bob Baffert, Doug O'Neill, and more. Play our daily late pick 4 with an average daily pool of nearly $300,000. Go to losalamitos.com for more.
Here's Machono. They're off in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Private Zone has run a 45 flat half mile and has opened up 2.5 lengths. Private Zone's got the lead close to home and he's all by himself. Private Zone wins the Forgo.
12:23 East Coast, 9:23 West Coast, the Matt Bernier Show on DRF Live. I want to thank Jay Priven, DRF national correspondent, again for joining us and going over the 3 races, the big 3, as far as the preps are concerned tomorrow afternoon. Let's bring in another guest, a buddy of mine from up back home in the Bay State, Mike McMahon from Sports Radio WEEI in Boston. You can follow him on Twitter at MuttWEEI. Mutt, it's Matt in New York. How are you?
I'm doing good, Matty. And how can you follow up a real reporter like Priven with a clown like me, a wannabe handicap? I'm going to bring you on in Boston after Buster only to talk Red Sox someday. Right after Buster.
Just throw me to the wolves at this point. No, look, for those of the people watching that don't realize this, not only is Mutt the pre- and post-game host of the Red Sox, but at the same time, you've got a new show coming out, you were telling me just in the break, coming up at 6 o'clock on weekdays, and you're also a major Saratoga fan and a major fan of horse racing in general. Yeah,
I fell in love with it. First time I went to Saratoga, which was 2004 Travers, and that's it. For anybody who's been up there, you walk in that building, you get bitten by the bug, and it's over. And I've been lucky to follow the sport, been lucky to work with guys like you and Mohegan Sun, do some of their events and stuff like that. So it's been great. I love the sport. I love talking about the sport. I love watching your show. I love reading the forum. I mean, I'm a degenerate horse player who loves the game, and great to see guys like you, young guys like you, getting an opportunity like this and putting on a great show every week.
I appreciate it, man. Well, let's dive into some of these races here. Let's start off down in Southern California. Sounds like the rain is showing up, unfortunately, for the Santa Anita Derby. We have a scratch already. We're going to take out Dresden Ermay. He's not going to go. But other than that, you got a field of 9, and I think most people are going to look at it and say there's 3 horses that are going to really take a lot of the money in this spot, and deservedly so, whether it is the 2 Exaggerated, the 3 Dancing Candy, or the 4 More Spirit. Overall, your thoughts of the San Felipe, the race they're coming out of, and how you think this race, the Santa Anita Derby, shapes up?
Yeah, I think this has been obviously one of the big pipelines for the Derby, right? You look back to the last couple of years,
Definitely.
And the horses that have come out of these big races in California have been major players, if not winners of the Derby in these Triple Crown races. I thought that the San Felipe sets us up for this one today. And for me, I'm a pace and price player. I'm trying to figure out the pace of these races, try to take advantage of that if there are opportunities. And Danzig Candy, a lot of people liked him last time. The one was pretty generous, given his credentials going into that race. I just wonder in this race, does he get the same setup, Matt? I look at other speed in here, and I think Denman's Call has to go from the rail. I think Smoky Image is going to go. Iron Rob is certainly going to go. Uncle Lino on the outside is going to go. And for me, as I looked at the speed of this race, and I kept coming back to I wanted a horse from off the pace. I think there were 2 horses of the big 3 you're talking about that fit that bill, and that's More Spirit and Exaggerator. And I think those are 2 horses that, given the likely pace scenario, are 2 likely winners. More Spirit probably the most likely winner of these 3 prep races this weekend.
Overall, as far as the San Felipe is concerned, a lot of people looked at it, and it sounds like Keith DeSormo's come out, and he's a little bit concerned about Exaggerator and how far ultimately he'll want to go. Are you looking at it that way as well, or are you looking at it saying in San Felipe, he ran for about a half mile, he put in a half-mile bid, and he flattened out, understandably so. Are you concerned about the 9 furlongs for him?
Obviously, since Keith has been concerned about it, he's training the horse, so I have to be. The things in his favor, besides the pace setup here, he's had success on a wet track. He had a win in the Delta Jackpot, which is a muddy track that day at the end of November. That was the 3rd race in a form cycle for him, and he put a buyer top of that 3-race cycle. If he could do that again, it'd be somewhere in the hundreds. He's going to be there. Yeah, I would feel a lot better if he showed more energy at the end of that race, and I would attribute it to, as you said, the flattening out, the run he made. And also, they took a little bit of a bump, maybe a little bit green as he got tired and drifted in the stretch. So, again, if he looked a little bit better at the end of that race in the San Felipe, I'd be stronger towards him. And I would like to pick him on top, but it just feels like this race sets up even better for More Spirit. It feels like Baffert and Stevens are sitting on a good one here. So if I'm playing against the speed, those are the 2 that I'll end up in this race.
And before we dive into the other 2 preps at Keeneland and at Aqueduct tomorrow, just overall, your feeling as far as the 3-year-olds are concerned this year, where do you think the strengths are? I mean, we saw last weekend Mo Heyman was the proverbial or the sort of unanimous choice as far as the Derby favorite was concerned. Nyquist hadn't done anything wrong in the racetrack, but it seemed like all eyes were on Mo Heyman. He ends up absolutely dropping a bomb. Nyquist goes out and does his thing. Where do you think the strength is as far as the overall crops? Is it Florida? Is it Southern California, New York, anywhere else?
I would defer to California right now. Being an East Coast guy, I'd love to have the East Coast bias and tell you that we're hiding horses here.
I hear it all the time.
And look out. But, yeah, exactly. I feel like there is more talent right now on the West Coast, depending on what happens tomorrow in the Wood. And from a betting standpoint, right, Bohemian, up until he didn't run in the Florida Derby, was the consensus favorite. A horse that never had a 100 buyer speed figure. A horse that was taking crazy money in the Derby pool. Things like 7-2 in the Kentucky Derby future pool, when you're going to get higher than that, even if you won the Florida Derby, probably on Derby day. So I think the talent of the crop is out west. I think from a betting standpoint, if it stays like this, there's going to be some unique opportunities on Derby day, because at least as of right now, with the 4 big races left here for the next couple of weeks, I don't think anybody besides Nyquist has really, really emerged. And so I give the edge to Southern California, but I'll admit that this thing feels wide open to me. And I don't, if you want to, Nyquist stands above right now, but after that, it feels like there's a lot of these that have a lot to prove and, could put us in a really good gambling scenario on Derby day.
The Matt Bernier Show on DRF Live, joined by Mike Mutnansky from Sports Radio WEEI in Boston. Let's shift our attention to the Bluegrass down at Keeneland. Opening day is today. It's about 40 degrees. There's a possibility for snow this afternoon. Tomorrow doesn't sound like it's going to be any warmer. I don't think the precipitation will be around, but you've got a phenomenal betting race. It may not be the best from a talent standpoint. I'm anxious to hear what you have to say about it, but you've got a field of 14, 2 on the also eligible list. Your morning line favorite is Zulu, and we just saw most recently Zulu running a pretty sound second to Mohaymen, where he really never threatened him. What are your thoughts on Zulu and this field as a whole?
Okay, the understatement of the day on your show is that this is might have a lack of talent in this field. There are horses later in this year. There'll be horses in this race that are running in races at racetracks, much smaller racetracks. I don't see a lot of talent in this field, and I think the exact opposite in the Wood Memorial in New York. We'll get to that. I heard what Jay said about this race, and I agree wholeheartedly. It is tough to get a really good feel for this race. It feels, again, like a field loaded with speed. You mentioned Zulu. Todd Fletcher puts the blinkers on. He's going to go, and you pointed out a couple times this week about the numbers that Fletcher has had putting the blinkers on in graded stakes like this. Lauban's going to go. Twiz is going to go. I'm guessing Paco Lopez, all he does is go. He's on a speed horse for Fletcher. I can't imagine that horse not going to the front. Pinson, if he gets in from the also eligible, he is going to go. And I respect Zulu, but blinkers on and based on Mohaymen's flat effort, I can't back him in this field. I can't imagine he's going to get the pace set up. Even the way Keeneland plays, I can't imagine he's going to be fast enough among these horses. So I'm against him in this race, Matt. And to your point, I agree with you off the field. There are a lot of questions about a lot of these horses.
And you brought up that formulator stat that we've got as far as Pletcher and Zulu is concerned, but the blinkers on past 5 years, first time blinkers in a graded stakes event, 1 for 17, only 5 of them have hit the board with an 0.61 ROI. So it's definitely not a profitable move for Pletcher. Maybe from a win standpoint, it's probably not even a successful one at that, at 1 for 17. As far as the race shape is concerned, you alluded to it. It looks like there's a ton of speed signed on. Even if you get one of the AEs in, you're just going to add to that sort of supersonic early race flow. Are you looking at this saying this thing's probably going to end up crumbling down the lane and you're going to get somebody that's either going to clunk up or really make a move? And if so, are you looking at a Brody's Cause, a Cherry Wine, or someone else?
There are 3 horses, I think, that have the best chance to win this race, and they're all going to be coming from off the pace. And we should mention, too, the fact that Donegal Moon is 5-1 here just tells you on the morning line, this is a good betting race. If I get the better race where Donegal Moon is near 5-1, then I'm going to go to the windows. And the 3 closers you mentioned, 2 of them in the 2 Dale Roman sources in Cherry Wine and Brody's Cause. And then way on the outside is My Man Sam. And I was prepared to go all in on My Man Sam for Chad Brown. Has the running style to do it. You feel like Julius is going to try to get that horse to the rail out of the break and make one run and try to use that setup to his advantage. But everybody, and I mean everybody, is picking this horse in the Bluegrass. It feels like he's going to be closer to 5-1 than he's going to be 10-1. And so the horse I'll end up with, I know his second choice in the morning line, is going to be Brody's Cause. And the excuse I'll make for him in Tampa Bay Derby is that some horses don't like that track. He says bump start at the comment line in the form. I took a little bit of a brush here at the start. That was not the excuse, but it's a horse with a win over the track. It's a horse that has run the mile and 16th 3 straight times, and it's a horse that is getting really worked out well these last couple of weeks. I think DRF Formulator and the Clocker reports are my 2 most important handicapping factors. And when I go in to look at a race, and the Clocker report for this weekend, and taking a sneak peek at it, I can tell you Brody's Cause, a horse that has got some nice things to say. Mike Bessie and Mike Walsh do an awesome job. Have some nice things to say about this horse, and he's got the running style to do it. Dale Romans had a hell of a weekend last weekend at Gulfstream, winning with Go Maggie Go. He brought a horse back off a 6-day layoff, who ran second in a big price. His barn's going in a good way, and I'm going to end up with Brody's Cause. 4-1 is not the price I'm looking for, but I wanted a closer, and I land on Dale and Brody's Cause and Louis Syatt, number 6.
Is there anyone in this field, again, we talk about it, it's a full field, you've got 14 that are going to go, it seems like. Is there anyone that just seems like a bit of an outsider that you can make a case for that you think either is going to get a good trip and could come running, or just may end up jumping up in a big way here?
Yeah, I thought that the only other one that I really wanted was Star Hill, who I know Jay mentioned talking to you a few minutes ago. Rusty Arnold has talked this horse up, and he's talked about the abilities of this horse, and he's been very positive with this horse. And he's probably going to be much closer to 10-1 than My Man Sam is going to be. and he might get first run on those closers depending on how far back those horses are given the speed. So Star Hill will be the fuzzy or the outsider. I might include my 3 closers in this race.
Let's dive into the third and final prep going on tomorrow afternoon. It's up here at Aqueduct out there on Long Island. It's the Wood Memorial, Grade 1, $1 million. You know the whole deal, 100 points, just like the other 2 races. Go to the winner. Field of 8 in here, and you kind of already tipped it off a little bit, Mutt, that this is almost the exact opposite of the Bluegrass, where it's a much smaller field. There's only 8 that are going to go, and we don't really know how good these horses are just yet, but from what we've seen, they look like they could be really good.
Yeah, I would equate it to, a very hot baseball prospects, Matt. This field is loaded with potential. These are all the blue chip prospects sitting at AA. They're all ranked by baseball prospectus, ready to go. And you don't know how good they're going to be, but you know they're going to be good. If I think that some of the Bluegrass runners might be running claiming races down the line, I'm not going to be surprised if some of these runners here in the Wood Memorial, as in multiple of these runners in the Wood Memorial, end up running in big stakes races for 3-year-olds, not just the rest of this year, but the next couple of years. And if you're playing in pick 4, if you're going to play the Bluegrass Wood Memorial pick 4, that great bet they have going on this weekend, pick 4 in New York, just in general. If you told me you went 6 deep in this race and said that the 2 California horses, I don't want them, but I can make a case for 6 of the others, I wouldn't blink an eye, because that's how much talent I think is in this field on Saturday.
Yeah, it really is loaded again, and I think that's a really good analogy. It's sort of the blue chipper that you don't know. There's no guarantees with any of them, but boy, they look really good on paper from a pedigree standpoint. They look good as far as the racetrack is concerned. And now, I think the favorite in here is going to be Shagaf, a horse that I've never been very high on. We'll find out. He'll probably shut me up tomorrow and win by 10. But coming out of that Gotham, I know you're interested. You and I talked about it a little bit last night. You're interested in the horse drawn just to his outside, Adventist.
Yeah, this is a race where, there's going to be rain and snow in the forecast, at least I checked this morning. Very similar to California, where it's not how much it's going to rain and snow, but when it's going to rain and snow. So just know that going into your handicapping. There's a scenario where Matt King Cole wires the field, but for me, I got to go back to Adventist in this race. And that Gotham Day, it's been chronicled by everybody. That was a day where you wanted to be on the inside. Now, it's much speed favoring, but the inside of that track was absolutely golden. And there's a spot in that race heading into the turn where Adventist is in the 2-path. And Irad and Shagaf actually jumped him on the inside, take away the inside position from Carmouche and Adventist, and sort of is a little bit of a stall there and loses position, then going into the turn and out of the turn. He's got to be wider than Shagaf. Shagaf stole that spot, then swung outside. You had a little bit of a check there in the lane. He's a green horse. I admit that as you watch the replay, you can tell that he's green. You can tell that there is still some inexperience there. But he ran against the worst of it. I thought he had a worse trip than Shagaf did. I thought he still fought to the end. I don't think he ever gave up at the end of that race. And Leah Giamatti, this is a trainer that has had good horses and has been able to do some things with good horses in the past. Sweet Reason jumps to mind, Noble Moon. And I felt like stretching out to 1 1/8, if I factor in the way the trip worked last time, if I get anywhere near 10-1 in this race, I want to be on Adventist. Certainly, I'm going to pick him on top, but I'm not going to be shocked if he ends up running second. And Kendrick Carmouche, what an awesome job he did at Aqueduct on the Inter this year. To me, he was the best jockey of that field. He's aggressive, he's talented, and at 10-1, given the trip and the track last time, I'll be on the 2 Adventists on Saturday.
You and I look at it the same way. I made him 6-1, but as I was texting you last night, I'm terrified that we're a few months too early and that this horse is really going to jump up when we get up to the spot here in a few months. As far as the 3 races are concerned, like we did with Jay, I know obviously odds will come into play. Give me your leans or your preferences. Santa Anita Derby, Bluegrass, Wood Memorial.
Yeah, I'm going to end up with more Spirit. It's close to him an exaggerator, but it just feels like it's Pepper Day. So more Spirit, the Santa Anita Derby. I think of the 3 races, he is the most likely winner. Brody's Cause, for me, at least right now in the Bluegrass, but my man Sam on the outside, if he ends up not taking the crazy money, I'll certainly be interested in that one. And then Adventist is a really deep Wood Memorial. And you mentioned Taylor Saval with Jay. This horse has had excuses in the last 2. He's worked, trained well, so that's another one that at a price might be of interest. But that Wood Memorial especially, and that looks like a great race of 3 really good races on Saturday.
And before I let you go, Mutt, we know you're the pre- and post-game host for the Boston Red Sox on WEEI up there in Boston. being from Boston, or Massachusetts, I should say, New England, I'm clearly interested. We're 1-1. We got rained out last night. It is what it is. Over under 88 wins for this team. I think they win 90 games. Am I crazy?
I think you are crazy. I think you're crazy to be there in New York. I'm guessing in that DRF building, you got a million Yankee and Met fans. You're the Red Sox fan walking around there. I am at 85 wins, which is about as boring and as vanilla as pitch you can get. But they don't have a number 2 pitcher. David Price, and after that, between Clay Buchholz and Porcello and Joe Kelly, I might rather have you or Illman pitching in that number 2 spot. I would Clay Buchholz. So I have them at 85 wins, and I think they win 90. Hats off to you, buddy. I don't see it this year unless they trade for number 2 pitcher.
Well, you're right. And look, the number 2 is a big concern. I'm just hopeful that once you get Eddie Rodriguez back off the DL, you get Carson Smith back, that bullpen I think is going to be much better than people are giving it credit for at this point. Maybe I'm being a little bit optimistic, and maybe I know I'm just rubbing salt in the wound or poking the bear down here in New York. But everything good. Mike, great stuff as always. Mike Mutnansky from WEEI up in Boston. Thanks for giving me a little bit of time here today. We'll talk again soon, and I'll see you up at the spot here in a few months.
Matt, I'm a huge fan. Congratulations on the great run you've had with DRF, and look forward to watching the show every week, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Mutt. We're going to take a quick break here on the Matt Bernier Show. When we come back, we're going to dive into the Big Apple Bluegrass All-Stakes Pick 4. Stay with us.
Daytime Southern California Thoroughbred Racing returns to Los Alamitos Thursday, April 14th. With top trainers like Bob Baffert, Doug O'Neill, and more. Play our daily late pick 4 with an average daily pool of nearly $300,000. Go to losalamitos.com for more.
Say goodbye to your inner caveman. If you're making caveman bets on pick sixes, you could be leaving money on the table. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you build more profitable exotic bets and place them with one click. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker. Be a samurai with your ROI. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you cut out unprofitable exotic bets before they happen and be the master of profits. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker, the exotic wagering app.
They're off in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Private Zone has run a 45 flat half mile and has opened up 2.5 lengths. Private Zone's got the lead close to home, and he's all by himself. Private Zone wins the Forgo.
12:42 on the East Coast, 9:42 on the West Coast. The Matt Bernier Show on DRF Live. If you're watching live, thank you for giving us a little bit of time. If you're listening on the podcast, YouTube, SoundCloud, DRF.com, thank you again. Want to thank again both of my guests. First, DRF Priven on Twitter, Jay Priven, DRF National Correspondent, and then my buddy from Boston, Mike Mutnansky from Sports Radio WEEI. I think we got some good insight, and this has been a fun show thus far. But we have to go back to what the show sort of, it's all about the preps, clearly, but we have an interesting sort of wager going on tomorrow that we've got to talk about. And this show today, the Matt Bernier Show, is presented by the Big Apple Bluegrass All-Stakes Pick 4. 2 races from Keeneland, 2 races from Aqueduct. We're going to dive into it right now and give you a ticket maker sort of outlook on this play. The first leg A of this sequence, is the Grade 3 Bayshore up here in New York. It's race number 9 at Aqueduct. You've got a field of 8, but it sounds like you're going to have a couple defections, and for me that made this race much more difficult. I think it sounds like, according to Jim Dunleavy, filed on DRF Live yesterday, which you can watch just below us here. The 2 and the 3, the 2 Awesome Speed, the 3 Never Gone South, they're likely to stay at Laurel Park and not make the trip up here. That for me was a major disappointment because I would have had Awesome Speed, the number 2, as my only A in this race. Now we've got to call an audible. There's 2 horses everyone's going to key in on. I'm not being cute or fun or interesting. I'm using both of them in equal weight. The 4 Awesome Gent for Todd Pletcher coming out of the Jimmy Wingfield with a 99 Buyer. It's co-highest last out in the field. Thought he looked very good. He's going to take a little bit of an acid test here because I think the quality of the competition is going to be much better tomorrow than anything he's faced thus far. And I'm also going to use the 5 Unified. Unified is a very flashy debut winner down at Gulfstream Park for Jimmy Jerkins. Jerkins doesn't normally do this kind of thing, just thrusting a horse up into a graded stake in their second lifetime start out of a maiden victory. I think the only other time he's done something similar to this was with another Centennial Farms runner in Wicked Strong. We saw what he turned out to be. Unified was late to change leads. That bothers me a little bit, but he can clearly run. I only went too deep in the opening leg of the Big Apple Bluegrass All Stakes Pick 4. Scheduled post time for the 9th race at Aqueduct, which is the first leg, leg A of the sequence. 4:52 East Coast time. You just saw the ticket up there. Let's move on to the second leg of this race. You could make the argument, I know the Bluegrass, and we'll talk about it momentarily. This is the race of the weekend, in my opinion. We've got these huge Derby preps, no question, and I'm not making light of them. The Madison at Keeneland, grade 1 for 4-year-old mares and up, fillies and mares. Just a phenomenal race. You take out the 1 cavorting, take out the 11. I'm trying to remember what the name of the filly is, but guess what? I threw the paper out already. She was on there. She's out as well. She was a speed. You've still got a pretty full field in here going 11 horses. I think you can go so many different ways in here. And one of the horses I'm really going to lean on in this spot is the 5 Bird at the Wire. Now, Bird at the Wire is a filly who, at this time in her career, she's been placed in some rather unfortunate situations, trying to go 2 turns recently at Santa Anita. But if you go back to her La Brea, and I think we have tape of that actually from December 26th, she went out and she's a 1-run sort of closing sprinter, and that's really what I think she wants to do. You take her back, you're going to see her if you're watching right now on live. She's in the red cap out here on the outside with Mike Smith, and she's coming from the absolute clouds, and she's going to run down Hot City Girl and cavorting on the front here. This is what she wants to do. She's a 1-run closing sprinter. She doesn't want 2 turns. And in her 2 most recent starts, I'm saying that she doesn't want the 2 turns. She's had disastrous trips and subpar rides in both of those races. I think she's getting back to what she wants to do. The concern has to be, look, she is facing the best competition she's ever seen. And she's putting blinkers on for Tom Proctor. Proctor with graded stakes recently, past 5 years, is 2 for 31. And both of those wins were with Include Betty, who's a nice little filly in her own right. She's going to have to run like Include Betty. She's going to need to move up and run a career best buyer because an 89 is simply not fast enough. But one of my A's in this spot is Bird at the Wire. I like her a lot. I'm also going to use the 7 Dancing House, who I thought was very impressive in her most recent start in winning the Barbara Fritchie down at Laurel Park. And the 9 Enchanting Lady of Philly I've always been very high on for Bob Baffert. I was licking my chops waiting for her to show up in the next spot. And then I see she shows up here in a race that is arguably as good, if not better, than last year's Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. So those are my 3 A's. I'm going to use the defending Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint champion, Wavell Avenue, as a B. I think she has a lot of ability. And the Chad Brown numbers on dirt, they don't completely scare me simply because she's the one that has overcome them. I think she's a quality mare. And as far as my C is concerned, again, there's a lot of fillies and mares in here that I love. I love Sunday Rules. Her speed, she can drop 21 and change on your head. Sometimes that's good enough. That's Southern California speed. My concern is, I wonder, can she handle all the other heat in this spot against the best field she's ever faced? Then she's going to have to hold off the closers coming from the back, and she's got to go an extra 1/8 of a mile. I just fear that it's a little bit too much for her in this spot. I think she's got a chance, but again, you got to get paid. I use her as a C. You just took a look at the ticket. Let's move on to leg C, the 3rd leg of this wager, the Big Apple Bluegrass All Stakes Pick 4. The Grade 1 Wood Memorial. We had Jay Priven and Mike McMahon discussing it a little bit earlier. We've got a preview up. Dan Illman and Mike Beer, they've gone over it. And all 3 of us will be on tomorrow on DRF Live starting at 3 Eastern to discuss the big 3 preps. 8-horse field. I think there's a lot of talent in here. I mean, me and my buddy Mutt, we're looking at this the same way. You can follow Mutt online, by the way, on Twitter, at Mutt, W-E-E-I. I think Adventist is a really interesting runner. I'm just terrified that we are a little bit too soon to the party. In his most recent start, look, we understand. Everyone has made it out. Mutt brought it up too. The inside bias. You're going to look at this horse. He's coming up in the blue silks. He's got the white blinkers on. He's been against the flow of the racetrack the entire way. He's been hung out to wide. He had his head cocked. He's a little bit sluggish out of the gate still. He's just very green. But there's something here. He's got some ability. Leah Giamatti does a good job with some limited stock. I think this horse has got a future. I fear that tomorrow might be a little bit too soon. I've been telling Illman for weeks. I go, this is the Travers winner. This is a Travers kind of horse. I'm going to bet on this horse. Mutt said he's 10-1 on the morning line. I like him at 6-1. he could be worth a wager for me simply because I don't love Shagaf in this spot. I'm going to take a shot against him. The other A that I'll use is the horse breaking from the far outside for Todd Pletcher, the number 8 Outwork. I thought Outwork was very, very impressive, running second in his first time going 2 turns in the Tampa Bay Derby behind Destin, who is one of the fastest 3-year-olds at this point in the country. Outwork is going to be forwardly placed. He doesn't have to be outright on the lead. I think he's going to get a good sort of position in this spot. The good thing for him is going to be he's probably going to sit just off of Matt King Cole, who's been very visually fantastic. I think he's a brilliant talent. I just question right now 2 turns against this caliber of competition. It'll be interesting to see. He could easily win. But as far as my A's are concerned, the 2 Adventist, the 8 Outwork, and I have 2 B's in this spot. The 1 Shagaf, just because, look, I know I'm not a huge fan. Anybody that's been watching the show or has been watching any of our previews or DRF Live knows I don't think this horse is the real deal, although he's been made the talk of the town, the belle of the ball. Maybe tomorrow's the day he jumps up. But guess what? If he's going to be a true Kentucky Derby contender, he's going to need to jump up in a big way. So let's take a look at the ticket that we've got. My 2 A's, the 2 and the 8. My 2 B's, the 1 and the 6. If you're alive, if I'm alive, we can, fingers crossed, because now you got to get to the biggest minefield of them all, the Grade 1 Bluegrass down at Keeneland. 14 horses, 2 of them on the also eligible list. I think you've got to go, I don't want to say, look, Zulu's the horse to beat. I firmly believe that. I don't personally love him in this spot. We talked about that Todd Pletcher formulator fact. Past 5 years, first time blinkers in a graded stakes event, 1 for 17, and only 5 of them have hit the board. This isn't a positive thing for Pletcher. He doesn't normally do that, and that concerns me a little bit. I think the most likely winner of the race is Cherry Wine, and this is his most recent start in the Grade 2 Rebel down at Oaklawn Park. He's a horse that's going to come from the back of the pack, and you're going to see he's going to put in a pretty good run. He's going to start looping up in between horses, and he finishes well. I thought all in all this was a pretty good race. He's in the orangish silks down, kind of splitting horses right now. I think he was a good horse, and coming into this race, I was very dubious of him. Coming into the Rebel, I said, this is a slow horse on paper. You can't tell me that he deserves to take all the money that he did. He got bet down to 7, almost 8 to 1, and he ran pretty well. And I look at this field, and I don't think we've got any world beaters in here. I think this is a pretty suspect field as far as talent is concerned. Cherry Wine's probably going to get a good setup. Corey Lannery has ridden he and Brody's Cause, both of the Romans horses, in almost all of their starts. And the fact that he decides to stay aboard Cherry Wine, I think it's a positive sign. I think he thinks that Cherry Wine is a better runner than Brody's Cause. Cherry Wine's 12 to 1 on the morning line. That's a pipe dream. I made him 6 to 1. I think he goes off in that 5, 6 to 1 range. Cherry Wine is one of my A's in here. Along with my top choice in this race, I'm going to bet him. And admittedly, he's a stab. He doesn't look like he belongs on paper. But guess what? I feel like this is just the kind of field that is begging for something really weird to happen. Tom Amoss has already scored this year with a 3-year-old at a big, big number. I like the 5 Crescent Drive in here. This was a horse that was on the also eligible list last week for the Spiral Stakes at Turfway Park. He comes into this spot. The blinkers come on. This is a horse top and bottom, bred for dirt. Now you've got it. We've got a formulator fact for you. Past 6 months, turf to dirt in routes 4 for 11, 36% with a 15+ ROI. Again, we know that Venus Valentine's is the reason that ROI is so huge, but I can even tweak those numbers a little bit. Past 4 years, second off the layoff, turf to dirt in a route race, 7 for 11. 10 of them have hit the board with a 16+ ROI. I like Crescent Drive in here. Those are my 2 A's, the 3 Cherry Wine, the 5 Crescent Drive. The 14, my man Sam, the post is a disaster, but guess what? He's a 1-run closer, and this may be the one instance where you actually wouldn't mind a horse to break slow, because he's just going to take to the back, let everyone go, take back, make your 1 run. He's run very well, I thought, last time out. His run against my man Sam, Matt King Cole was very impressive. He has every right to get it done. I just think everyone is picking this horse, and everyone thinks he's good. He may actually be the favorite when it's all said and done, or co-choice, along with Zulu. And as far as the C is concerned, like Jay and Mike had both said, I think Star Hill's a nice runner. I wish he had done a little bit more running in the Tampa Bay Derby. Someone had to run third, and I just felt like he was kind of even throughout, but he's paired up Byers, 88s in his 2 most recent starts, which I'm a fan of. I think that's always a positive sign. I think Star Hill is an interesting runner. I used him as a C. Well, let's take a look at the final ticket, Mike Claudio. This right here is a $70 play the way that I laid it out. And when I say that, I'm saying you're playing all of your A's for 50 cents. I'm playing an all A's and all B's ticket for 50 cents. And then I'm playing an A's and C's ticket. If you put that all together for a $50, it is $70. That way, your A's, if they come in, you're going to have them for $1. You can weight it that way. That's the beauty of DRF Ticketmaker. It's a fantastic sequence. We want to thank everyone involved at Naira and down at Keeneland for sponsoring this today. Again, the Matt Bernier Show presented by the Big Apple Bluegrass All Stakes Pick 4. It starts tomorrow. The first leg is with the Bayshore up here at Aqueduct. Post time right around 10:05 East Coast time. Let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're turning for home here on the Matt Bernier Show. We'll give you the rundown of what's to come on DRF Live tomorrow. We'll give you a fun video, and we have to talk quickly about the Masters. It's ongoing right now. Stay with us.
Say goodbye to your inner caveman. If you're making caveman bets on pick sixes, you could be leaving money on the table. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you build more profitable exotic bets and place them with one click. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker. Be a samurai with your ROI. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you cut out unprofitable exotic bets before they happen and be the master of profits. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker, the exotic wagering app.
Turning for home on the Matt Bernier Show, 12:56 East Coast, 9:56 on the West Coast. I'm about to channel my inner Jim Nantz right now. Bring it down a little bit. Jordan Spieth is on the first tee down at Augusta National. He's your leader after the first round of the Masters at 6 under. He's the only leader that we've known over the past 5 rounds at Augusta, which is just mind-boggling. But I'm going to channel my inner Jim Nantz. Hello, friends. This time of year, I said it at the beginning when we were doing this show. It's the best time of year because you've got Derby preps, you have March Madness, you have the Masters, you have the Kentucky Derby, you have baseball opening day, the Mets home opener over at Citi Field today. Apparently Bartolo Colon got a huge standing ovation. How can you not like Big Sexy? It's fine. There's so much going on. And if you are not a sports fan, I can't help you. I don't know how you don't get excited about some of these things, and we'll show a video in a little bit. But first, let's talk about some DRF tournaments. We don't have a slate for you this week, but you guys are sharp. You know what's going on. You can go on drfqualify.com, nhcqualify.com, bcqualify.com to see all the events that we've got going on this weekend. Let's throw up our slate as far as tomorrow's scheduling is concerned for DRF Live starting at 3 Eastern. Dan Illman, Mike Beer will bring you in and start you, and then we'll have a couple of shift changes, it sounds like, and then I think you're going to get the 3 of us all together, bringing you right from the Madison on down through the Wood, the Santa Anita Derby, and the Bluegrass Stakes. The big 3 Super Saturday as far as the Derby preps are concerned here on DRF Live starting at 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific. But again, this is sports. Sports. Hashtag sports on Twitter. Phil Mickelson, big lefty. I've got it on the big screen right now here in the studio. 1:39 tee time. You know, he played much better than the even would suggest he did yesterday. But again, Augusta can be a fickle place. If you don't like sports, and I'm about to show you the video of the week, I don't know what to do for you, because if this video of Chris Jenkins hitting a buzzer beater to win the national championship during March Madness, which again, Jim Nantz got the call. We'll talk about Nantz in a minute. If this doesn't get you going, I don't know what would.
Seconds at midcourt. Jenkins gives it to Jenkins for the championship. Champions with Jenkins hitting the win.
How does that not get you excited? And a great call from Jim Nantz. Jim Nantz, I think, is the best play-by-play by himself. The fact that he can do so many things. He can go in the course of 1 week. He can go from losing and saying Villanova, phenomenal national champions, to at the end of the week, he'll be whispering in Butler Cabin talking to the winner of the Masters, and at this point it looks like it might be Jordan Spieth again. Oh, and by the way, he also called the Super Bowl. No big deal. I mean, the guy is amazing, fantastic, but this is the kind of time of year, if you're not a sports fan, man, I feel bad for you because you're missing out on the party. I want to say thanks to my guests again, Jay Priven, the DRF national correspondent, my buddy Mike McMahon from up in Boston, Sports Radio WEEI. Super Saturday's upon us. 3 final Derby preps at the big 3 as far as Keeneland, Santa Anita, and Aqueduct are concerned. We'll have it for you all tomorrow afternoon, 3 Eastern, here on DRF Live. Thanks for watching. If you're watching on the podcast, YouTube, SoundCloud, DRF.com. Thank you for giving us a look. We'll check back in with you next Friday here on the Matt Bernier Show. Best of luck.